Hello and welcome to episode 70 of the Bladeology podcast. It's crazy that we've made it this far. Thank you so much for coming along with us on this wild journey. Are you a knife maker or someone thinking about getting into the making of knives and tools? Are you tired of purchasing subpar materials at Home Depot, trying to heat treat them only to find out that it's not steel at all? Have you been living under a rock since 1855? When Henry Bessemer invented his process for which pig iron was used, his method let him produce steel in large quantities cheaply. Thus, mild steel came to be used for most purposes for which wrought iron was formerly used. Yes, I'm talking about steel. You should be getting it from the New Jersey Steel Baron, including the rare and now awesomely stateside Hitachi Aogami Blue and Hitachi Shirogami White, Nitro V, CPM MagnaCut, 8670, 125 CR1, and other awesome steels. Hit them up at the NewJerseySteelBaron.com. They do amazing work for Town Cutler, Doghouse Forge, RMJ Tactical, and Rustic Knives, just to name a few. Tell them the boys from the podcast sent you. Stay tuned. All right, we're going to jump into this like we do every week. Welcome to another episode of the Bladeology podcast. I am your host, Jeremiah Burbank, and I'm on with my co-host, Nick. How are we doing?
Great.
And we are on with a guest this week. This is a long time coming, mutual friend of everyone's in the industry and ours, Mr. John Kerner from EOS. How are we doing?
Hey guys, I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Doing awesome. I'm pumped to have you on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on here.
This is gonna be good. We're gonna get into this. So you're a prominent individual in the knife industry, in the EDC industry. You got the EOS going. Tell us a bit about how you got into that. How did EOS become the juggernaut that it is today? Where did you start?
Well, I kind of I've always was messing around with mechanical things ever since I was a kid. I always made my mom stop along the side of the street when I was 10 years old to pick up the free lawnmower, just so I could take it apart and study it. And I was a nerd. What do you want me to tell you? But when I was 15, 11th grade high school or 10th grade high school, I was building this go-kart. Never got to finish it, but it got me. That go-kart was pretty important because I was working on this go-kart, and my parents, I couldn't make this part. I was like, I need this metal ring made, blah, blah, blah. My mom's like, oh, they make those motorcycles up the street, Orange County Choppers. She's like, you should just go there and ask them if they can make it for you. So my mom drives me there because I was 15, didn't even have a license. She drives me into Choppers. I walk in there with a fully dimensioned schematic print of this ring that I needed made. And I'm like, hey guys, can you guys make this? And they're like, yeah. And then I walk in, and I see all these crazy motorcycles, and I rode dirt bikes growing up, and anything that burned gasoline was got me going. So I was like, wow, this is crazy. So anyways, I handed them the print. They're like, yeah, we'll make this, blah, blah, blah. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a phone call, and it was Paul Tuttle Jr. He's like, hey, we got your ring done. Come pick it up. He's like, also, you want a job? I'm like, well, I'm still in high school. I guess I could walk there. And so I started working there after hours, after school. It was only a half mile from my high school, so literally bus just dropped me off there. And then one of the guys that worked there drove me home. And I was kind of the CNC machine shop bitch for a while. And I learned a lot in that situation. And it was all very fast paced. By the way, there was a Discovery TV show going on the entire time I was there. So I had they had all these protocols and it was crazy just being a part of being on the show. And I was rarely on the show. There's a couple of times, and it was a lot of fun, and I got to do a lot of things that many people would have never been able to experience. And it was always something new every day when I worked there. So it was oh, hey, by the way, in Paul Sr.'s office, yeah, the cake boss is in there. He wants you to try his new cake. Or, oh, by the way, Donald Trump's hanging out. You guys want to go on Air Force One? I'm like, really? We got to get a tour of Air Force One. Or, hey, the helicopter's going to land in the parking lot. So if you guys don't want prop wash all over your cars, you probably want to move them. So it was almost surreal experience working there. But I was the youngest one there for a long time. They all called me Squeaker. They all made fun of me. But then they got some new guys, and I became the one that was the mad scientist of the pranks. So whenever they needed something mechanical or technical or explosive, they hey, Johnny, can you come help us blow up this thing? I'm oh yeah, no problem. Watch this. Next day I came in, my dad owns a bunch of car dealerships. I'm Dad, I need some airbags. He would give me airbags. I would install airbags, car airbags with 12 volts with trip switches and things, and just blow up shit in the shop, and it would be for the show, and it was fun. But there was a lot of craziness while I was working there, and I was behind the scenes most of the time. But during that time, I always wanted to mess around. I had access to a pretty much top tier machine shop at the time, or at least what I thought was a top tier machine shop at the time. And during lunch hours or after work, I'd be hey, can I make this part for my car? Or hey, can I I want to make this thing? And they're yeah, sure, go for it. So I basically one day I made the first version of the EOS wallet, and it's very similar to the current generation, but plates, O-rings, titanium, aluminum, whatever it may be. And I made one for myself, and I'm oh, this is really cool. I love it. And then carried it around for a while, and then my buddy, he's yo, John, I really like your wallet. Can I get one? So I made him one. I'm here you go, bro. Then all of a sudden, his friends were hitting me up. And now I'm I don't even know this guy. And he's asking me for this wallet. I'm I'm not just going to give it to him for free. So I'm yeah, give me $50. You can have one. And then, it kind of spiraled up from there. And after I kind of sold a bunch of them, I was people were yo, you should sell these. So I made an Etsy store because I didn't know what else to do. And I was renting out the machines from shoppers after hours and on the weekends to make my wallets that I was selling on Etsy. And I was okay, this is pretty cool. So I was selling a bunch of these wallets, and then, I was basically paying shoppers a flat fee to borrow their equipment on the off hours just to make my wallets, which is our wallets are our staple product. Our knives are awesome, but our wallets are our biggest volume product and in my opinion, our most innovative product. So we were making those for a while on Etsy. I was selling them on Etsy, and then it got kind of to a point where I was okay, I'm making X amount of dollars working for choppers all week, and then I'm making 3 times that much on the weekend making a bunch of these wallets that are already selling out. So I'm hey, Dad, I got to buy one of these machines. He's okay, kid, you got it. He's how much? I'm oh, it's $100,000. He's oh, you got it? I'm no, Dad, I don't have that kind of money. He's well, what do you got? I was oh, I have a motorcycle that's paid off, and I live at home at this point, and I'm I have nothing. So he ended up having to co-sign for me. So I was oh, I got this machine, but my dad's oh, by the way, don't fuck this up, because if you do, you're gonna pay me back every dime. I don't care if it takes you the rest of your life. So then it's me, 23-year-old John, in this small ass rented space that I was lucky enough to get for cheap, just making wallets. And I made a bunch of wallets. I sold wallets, and my goal was just to make that machine payment every month. And then I made an Instagram page, and I was okay, cool. I'm starting to gain some followers, and people that were buying my wallets were guys that were doing pocket dumps. So I'm seeing okay, these guys don't just like the wallet. They've got all this other stuff. And now I was always into knives, but nothing custom, nothing special. Not even like I never even owned a mid-tech. Like I had a couple Benchmades and some Spydercos, and I thought I was the shit. But I didn't even know the scale of the market outside of that. But I was like, I could make a knife, and it could be really cool. So I spent like, a few months designing, developing, making like the OG Orca, and I made one. And I posted it up on my Instagram. And I said, hey guys, here's the deal. I made this one knife. It's $400. I said, I don't have any money. I can't make these unless you guys pay me up front. And 5 minutes they were sold out.
Bam. So how many was in that original run of Orcas?
50.
Damn.
Because that was like the number I decided that I could handle.
All right.
So we sold, and for me, I was like, okay, wow, I just sold 50 custom knives, $400 a piece at 23 years old. And I was like, okay, now I got to make these knives. But I kind of did like an unconventional approach, which is like absolutely not a smart idea now that I think about it. But the more SKUs you have, the more difficult it gets. You can ask any knife maker that. Like, there's a line between the amount of customization that you offer a client and what's realistically acceptable for a maker. So I thought it would be cool to send out like these wedding invitations after everyone bought a knife with like a return label and a stamp on it, and it had a card, and they get to fill out like all the add-ons, or what do you want for dinner at the wedding? And it was like, oh, do I want a Timascus backspacer? Do I want the clip to be anodized? This, that. Like, do I want a high polished blade? This. And I went like overboard. And anyways, like, it took me a lot of work to get through it, but we did it. Most people sent back their cards. Some people didn't, and it was difficult. But that knife kind of put us on the map, where it was like this like random kid just like, okay, you made this frame log for $400, and it's like a semi-custom or a mid-tech knife, and like you just came out of nowhere. And then from there, we kind of started to grow a little bit more. And this is when I had one machine. I was by myself. And then we started making a little bit more money and getting a little bit busier. So I ended up hiring another guy who I picked up from a local job fair at the Lincoln Tech Haas CNC Training Center. Sean, he's been with me ever since. He's still with me. He's my right-hand man. And we kind of, we took off from there. But without the experience that I had at Orange County Choppers, like, and I was back and forth to college in between that. And I was like, you know what? Like, I wanted to fight my professors every day. I'm like, all this calculus shit is bullshit. I'm like, I just want to cut metal and make cool shit. And I'm still doing it.
Okay. What were you in school for originally, John?
Yeah.
Mechanical engineering.
Oh, same thing. Okay. We both dropped out.
So I have 2/3 of a mechanical engineering degree, but it's the only 2/3 that I think I'll ever need.
So what, just to dive into some details, so about what year did you start working at the Choppers?
So it was probably it was 2006, 2007.
Okay, so you were
2006. I was 16.
So you were still literally still in regular high school?
Correct.
Okay, so you're in high school, then you're working at Choppers, and then they were filming during your entire tenure there, or the show stopped at some point, right?
It didn't. It like stopped for a few months while I was there. Then it kicked back on.
Okay.
And then eventually, it got to the point where EOS it was like a make or break time for EOS. It was like, I need to leave Choppers and pursue EOS, or EOS is never gonna make it, and that's what I did.
Okay. So where did you put that first? What was the first machine? Was the first machine a mini mill?
No, it was a Haas VF2 SS.
Oh wow.
So,
okay.
And I think Haas is like, everyone can say what they want about Haas, and they're like a Chevy or a Ford. There's better stuff out there. I promise you there is. But for the stuff that we do and the stuff that they offer a great value for a machine tool. And the thing about them is that they're backed by service, they're backed by their warranty, and they're American made. And I drive a Ford. I'm all about American manufacturing. Only buy materials that are made in America, and I'm very like USA forward about my products. And I've had people on Instagram like call me out and say, hey, like, your stuff's made in China, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, like, no worries. She's like, I'm about to buy this knife, but like, can you prove to me that it's made in America? And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. I was like, do you want to FaceTime me like right now? I said, do you see these Haas machines? I said, do you see this New York State license plate on this Ford truck? I said, do you see me and my boys like hustling? By the way, like, here's your knife in my hand. Do you need more reassurance? And then they buy the knife.
Like I love that. Like that's I remember you first telling me that story years ago, and I think that's great. I mean, like it's part of the brand image. It's part of who you are. It's part of who EOS is. Here's that original Haas. Are you still running it?
Oh yeah, it still runs like a top.
Hell
That's
yeah.
the thing. It's so out of all the machines I have, the Haas, like they are really they're the best. I won't talk about the ones that I hate. Well, we can if you want to. It's fine.
So
don't ever buy a Flow water jet ever.
Where did you put that original machine? Like when you got that VF2, where the hell did it go?
I'll send you a picture of it later. So it was like I had a 30 by 20 bay, and it was literally a work table, a drill press, and a VF2, and me, and that was it. And I was like, okay, like here we go. And since then, I've added quite an arsenal of equipment. And now we've got two beautiful Swiss turn centers, water jet, beautiful Okamoto surface grinder. We've got 3 more Haas machines and a bunch of other support equipment that's really given us some great capabilities to service our product line as well as service other people's needs, even if it's just components to their finished product.
Okay. Yeah, and so right. So EOS has grown exponentially since those early days, and as you alluded to, right? So you do a little bit of OEM on the side there.
Yeah, so most of our OEM is Swiss turn screw machine parts. And I'd love to tell the story about the screw machines because they were a big deal when we got them, and when we got the first one. So now, for any of you guys who've seen our wallets, it's 2 titanium plates held together by a bunch of screws with O-rings that hold everything together. But the plates are only 80,000 sticks, so the screws have to thread into that plate, but they can't stick out because if they stick out, they're going to scratch against your credit cards or whatever's inside your wallet. So what we were doing was, while we were selling these wallets, we would have these plates. It'd be like a small rectangle plate, size of a credit card, hold like 85 screws. And we would buy screws from MSC or McMaster-Carr or wherever we had to. And what we would do is we would screw the screws in, not just me, my whole family. We'd sit down, watch TV at night, and we would be putting screws into plates or taking screws out of plates. So the screws would get put in the plates, and the next day they would go to the shop, and I would grab them with a set of vice grips and grind them down to thickness on my belt grinder, my 2x72. And the next night we would come home, we would take the screws out of those plates that were ready to go in the wallets and load fresh ones in. And then one day my dad got like pissed off. He's like, why are we doing this? He's like, you're telling me that with all this shit that we have available to us, he's like, you can't buy the right fucking screw? And I'm like, well, Dad, like I've looked around. I said, but they want like $5 to make one screw. I said, that's going to like price up my wallets out of the market. And he's like, well, go in there, go call your Haas guy and tell him you want a Haas machine to make those screws. So next week, or shortly after that, called my Haas rep, Marty McGill, Allendale Machinery, and I said, hey Marty, I need to come down. I need a machine to make this specific part. And I brought the screws down. He's like, oh. I was like, yeah, I need to buy a Haas lathe. He's like, no. He's like, you need a Citizen. I'm like, well, what the fuck's a Citizen? He's like, get in the car. So we drive 5 minutes down the road, and we walk into Citizen. I see these small machines. They kind of look like copiers, which is like a little souped-up copy machine, And they got this 12-foot bar feeder on them. And I'm like, oh, these are cool, like whatever. And so I show there's like, technicians like running sample parts, whatever. They got 5 or 6 machines set up in their facility. Like a couple of them are running. I'm like, oh, these are pretty cool. So he's like, hey, what are you trying to make? So I hand him the screw, like the ground down one. And then I show him the other one. I was like, yeah, see, these are too long. I want to make a short one. He's like, okay. He's like, yeah, this machine can make that. I'm like, yeah. I was like, cool. Well, I'm going to go. I said, call me when that machine on the showroom floor is making my screws, and then maybe I'll buy it. And he's like, all right, cool. So like 2 weeks later, they call me like, hey, John, come down the showroom. This machine's spitting your screws out. walk down there with my Torx 10 driver, walk in there, pull a screw out of the bucket, covered in oil from the machine, just got spit out, throws it in my wallet, perfectly flush, amazing. I was like, wow, that's the exact screw that I need. And I'm like, how much is this machine? Like, yeah, it's about $250,000 plus options. And I'm like, okay. Well, it turns out now I have 2 of them, and they absolutely rip. And I make screws for a lot of people that don't have Swiss turn centers, and they make amazing parts out of round bar from small to large, and they're extremely efficient. They're also really scary to run. So if you it was like a 2-year learning curve. One of mine actually caught on fire once. Jared, I was on the phone with your brother at the time when my machine exploded.
Nice, that's pretty awesome.
I remember you showed us the security cam footage.
And then I got
Jesus.
Yeah, I was walking away, and like literally, it looks like someone just threw a grenade inside my machine. But the fire suppression system, which I would say is an absolute necessity if you own one of these machines, saved the machine. I was back up and running in 3 days.
At an affordable price of $40,000, you could have a fire suppression system.
No, they're like $10,000. They're not that bad.
Yeah, but just how everyone makes them seem, it's always like,
this is
okay,
20% yeah, but
purchase.
All right, but if you ever saw pictures of a Swiss machine that caught on fire,
oh no, it's a must for titanium.
It looks like you ever see a car fire on the street where the engine blocks melt into the asphalt? That's what happens to the whole machine. It melts through your floor. So if you don't have fires, do not buy a Swiss screw machine without fire suppression, or if you do, you're stupid. So it's all good.
Yeah, even in the houses, my dad watches Moon and that Zerkatai especially. He's like, oh, come help me. He's like, I literally cannot leave this machine right now. He's like, why? I was like, if I stop shooting this hose, this 30-gallon coolant tank is going to burn through the floor and be everywhere.
Yeah, it's totally true. You got it. Yeah, especially and all the people that want to buy the knives, they want those exotic materials. And I still, to this day, I've had a bunch of customers request, hey, can you make me screws out of Zerk? I was like, yeah, sure, on your screw machine, but I'm not putting that in mine. Sorry.
Well, I want to backtrack a little bit because the story you told me how you started was a little different, but I was asking you about EOS cases. Why does it say cases? And I thought you started with phone cases before.
Back in the day, yeah. So that was kind of experimental phase. We made some phone cases for a while, but it was everybody. We did that for a little bit, and we might get back into it. I'm not going to tell anybody what's going on, but I do have some ideas in the works, but it's going to be very limited production, serialized stuff, and they're not going to be cheap, but they're going to be pretty badass. But we did make phone cases for a while. The problem is the phones change so fast, but then everybody started calling our wallets cases, and I don't really care what you call them. If you buy it, whatever, it's all good.
I mean, it's a card case. But that's logical.
Yeah, it is. And it's that's the product that kind of put us on the map, because we sell 20 wallets to every knife we sell. So it's that's how it is. So it's a unique product and not everybody's a knife person, which they should be, but everybody every guy carries a wallet. It's that's just how it is. And there's a lot of really crappy ones out there, and I think ours solves a lot of issues of the standard generic wallet, and we've got the process down to where the quality of our wallets is second to none, and people really like them.
So jumping into the wallet thing, right? I mean, I would have to say, I believe from my perspective, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, this is your game here, but your wallet, I think, was the first that I was exposed to, the first sort of tactical, new EDC wallet of its kind. Is that incorrect? I know there's a bunch of them on the market now, but I remember for a very long time it was yours or nothing else.
Yeah, so there's a lot of other ones out there, and I think that a lot of the other wallets, I'm not trying to rat on anybody else or talk down to anyone else's product, but ours are very well, first of all, ours are 100% made in USA, which a lot of other companies, not going to mention anyone else except for Ridge Wallet, which are made in China.
Just them.
But okay. yeah, just them. It's fine. But they're not very good at disclosing that. If you hold a Ridge wallet in your hand and you hold an EOS wallet in your hand, it takes about 1.5 seconds to realize which one is the better wallet, and they're the same price. So I think that there's pluses and minuses to both, and I think that like overall the quality of our wallets and the ability to have a lot more customization on the wallets. Like we have over 60 different variations of wallets, and like, yeah, sure, like if you email us or you hit us up on the site, like we will custom laser engrave one for you, no problem. And they work. Like everybody that has one, and I even tell people, I'm like, hey, I'll be like, yo, if you hate this wallet, I was like, I'll buy it back from you. I don't care if it's beat up. Like, I'll buy it back from you in a month. I'll buy it back from you in 6 months. I was like, and it's not for everybody. I would say I think it's for 85% of people. Some people are like, oh, I can't carry a wallet in my front pocket, which like, I guess like that's cool if you want back problems when you're 50, but.
There you go. Okay.
So, I mean,
okay.
I think it's
like 2 years ago, all my friends were buying Ridge wallets for some reason. Like one friend got them, and then like three others got them.
Ridge Wallet's marketing is actually it's unbelievable. They spend $15 to $20 million a month on ads.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I remember I saw them, I was laughing.
They're an absolute powerhouse. They're an absolute powerhouse selling like Chinese product that is not in my and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. Like I'll send you one of each, and you guys can test them out. But like my wallet will outlast a Ridge wallet tenfold.
Oh yeah, no, I still have like an OG titanium wallet that I think you gave me, and I still keep my business cards in it. Like I love it. It's great.
Yeah, and they're pretty versatile.
It really is. It's so simple. Like you can't break it, and it just works. Like I appreciate that, the simplicity in the design.
I have about 10 of those aluminum ones you used to make.
Oh yeah, well, that was our Blade Show deal. It was like $10. Like try our stuff.
I remember I bought one every time I walked by your booth, and I got home and I was like, I have so many of these,
like,
and then just different business cards. But I show my friends that when they all had the Ridge wallets, I'm like, actually check this out. But John makes
and you're literally showing them the cheapest one we make, which is $10.
And I was like, this is their basic bitch one. I'm like, this was $10. You can't get one for 10 now, but I'm like, this is cooler because it's made in America in New York. And
maybe we should bring that back. Maybe I should just make a boatload of those and be like $10, let's go, try us out. Because like really, like you can't get 2 coffees for $10 now.
I mean that's you have to do that when you come back to Blade, when you make your epic return to Blade shows.
Yeah, well once we catch up on all of the stuff that we're making, we will be back to Blade Show. Just right now, it doesn't make sense for us as a brand because we're struggling with horsepower, trying to get enough work done to fulfill the needs of our customers and clients. So, and that's partially on me. There's a lot of logistics and it's a lot of work. I work a lot, as you guys know, but it's definitely there's a lot of things that we could definitely be doing better, but we're working with what we got. I got one guy right now who might not even be able to be coming back to work. He's my screw machine kid, Blaine. He's really good on the Swiss machines, but he got a bad motorcycle wreck, came back to work for one day, and now he's like, hey, he literally one day worked great. He's like, I could put full weight on my leg. He's got, bionic leg, all titanium pins and screws in there. Next day he texts me, he's like, dude, I can't even get up, can't do anything. Now he's back in surgery. They got to do all kinds of extra work, ripping pins and stuff out of him. So it's like, it's not cool. So he's not coming back for the next 6 or 8 months. So now I got to find a replacement. So the replacement's going to be me on the screw machines, and I'm going to have to find somebody else to fill in the gaps of ordering product or doing some of the stuff that, doing some finishing work, checking parts, assembly, et cetera, et cetera. So it's quite a bit of stress on me, especially, like we're a small team, just like you, Nick, you know how it is.
Mm-hmm. Like it's very important that you said someone to help ordering. It's a very overlooked thing, but it's
my God. All right, Nick. Yeah, I kind of want your perspective on this.
It's
too.
like the amount of times where I'm like, I'm going to make a fixture, and I swear to God I have this aluminum for it, and I don't. I'm like, I start cursing. I'm like, God damn it. I was like, oh yeah, I didn't order that. Dude.
Okay, well, yeah, we're on the same page, bro.
Like you have the Rolodex in your head of what you have, so you think you know it all, but then oh yeah, we're gonna use that piece, and it's a very serious thing about scheduling time to order shit.
Oh, dude, and it's impossible almost.
And it's it's different suppliers. Like Jared was ordering Damascus, and he's like, I'm just gonna order this. I'm like, Damascus. The trick is everyone sells their stuff differently, and the measurements are all lies.
For sure. You just don't know.
Yeah, it's like that's the measurement. It's like, no, you actually need a 30 thou oversize for it to clean up to that size. They don't say that on their website. It's just shit that you start learning. Same thing with aluminum. different suppliers, it comes a little differently. Steel, everything. It's not just like, hey, order this for me off the website. It's like actually sometimes you have to call the place, figure out how they do things, what their tolerance specs are. Like when I explain it to friends, I'm like, I work in tenths. To put that in perspective, take a human hair and divide it by 10. That's how tight everything is. When you try to
explain that to someone that doesn't know how small a tenth is, they don't get it.
Yeah, I just go with the human hair thing. I'm like, human hair is 10 times that wider.
Yeah, split it up.
Let's circle back to the timeline here. So you get the VF2, you're running it. What about the location? Are you in now the same location you were then, or the business has grown since then?
So, okay, yes, I'm in the same location. No, I do not have the same amount of space. So I was really fortunate enough to have. So my father owns a bunch of car dealerships. He's third in command. My godfather owns all of them. And one of the old dealerships, they ended up upgrading, building a whole entire new store. So half of that old dealership is the billing and the call center for all 10 of their dealerships. So there's a bunch of people in there answering phones, going through deals, doing all the crappy work that car sales involves that no one wants to do. So they're in like the old showroom / office area of that building. My shop is in the shop area that used to be where they service the cars. There's some cool history about the building. It's built in the late 1800s, and it actually used to be it's called Coates Goshen, Coates, and they only built like a dozen cars, but they were building like some of the most Americanized Rolls Royce of the early 1900s. And then the place burned down. And if you like peel back some of the walls, you can see that there's fire charred brick behind there, which is like really cool. But anyway, so I started out renting out one small bay there, and they had all Healy parts storage in there. And then I started to grow, bought another machine, didn't need more space, and then got another machine. And then I was like, Dad, like I need like more space. And like they had all kinds of like, Home Depot shelves in there with car parts on them. I'm like, hey, Dad, like, can I like rent more space? And he's like, well, your rent's going to go up. I was like, well, clearly. So we kind of expanded from 800 square feet to now just over 6,000 square feet in the same building, which is, I'm super grateful for having the option to grow my shop inside of the same space without having to keep moving around. And I'm definitely grateful for it. I did have to bring in more electricity. I had to put in another 400 amp service, and I have 800 amps. And I highly underestimated the cost of bringing in more power and going through all the logistics and the red tape of adding a separate service to the same building. I wanted a higher voltage. I wanted 480 volt because there would have been less amps and it would have been less demand on the meters, which it's kind of like some people understand that. But anyway, so they're like, no, you have to have the same voltage. So I got 400 amps again. So now I have 800 amp service, but everything is split now. So I have 2 electric bills, which is like kind of annoying, but it is what it is. But once I fill up this 400 amps, the second 400 amps that I have, I can't take any more power. So I'm gonna, my future goal is to have my own standalone shop, 10 to 15,000 square feet but I have like big plans of, I want to build that shop from the ground up. Like I want radiant heat in the floor. I want drains in the floor. I want air conditioning. I want maximum lights. I want offices above. I want to have clean room with whatever I need in here, but I want everything to be accessible. But like something as simple as putting drains in the floor is like a huge deal. But then if you think about it, like, oh yeah, just put drains in the floor. But then you also have to have a filtration system because coolant spills coming out of the machines, you can't just dump that. It has to go through a system. But nonetheless, it would be a great thing to have. But that's at a high cost. So right now my shop is perfect for me. I have enough room and power for 4 or 5 more machines with my current capabilities, even though everyone's like, you can't fit more machines in here. I'm like, yo, watch me.
Oh,
because that's what they said. Like, yeah, but everyone said that like 4 machines ago.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, trust me, like we can play Jenga here and fit them.
Oh yeah, the
we,
shop
we,
now.
we always do.
Yeah.
It's funny when you mention about the filter system with the drain. Like simple things like that, people think it's simple. It's like my old shop actually had a drain, and when the inspectors came, they're like, we have to plug this drain. I'm like,
Yeah,
why?
or
It's 2 feet away from your oil.
if you dump coolant down that, you're gonna get fined like out of business.
Yeah, it's crazy if they got you. But like you came, it's like, oh, we have to plug this. I was like, why? It's convenient. And I was like, there's oil 2 feet away.
Like, sorry, we can't do that. So like, yeah, and there's like a lot of regulations, and like, and then when you start hiring employees, like, you don't realize like all the extra added costs of like, oh yeah, like I'm just gonna hire people, and you don't realize like, oh, workers' compensation insurance and this and that and all the taxes, and then everything just like stacks on top of each other, and you're like, now you really gotta work hard just to keep it at the size you're at. So it's like, don't go too fast, but I feel like sometimes you have to just like dive in as well. So it's a hard, it's a hard balance to manage both those situations. And I'm not saying like I'm definitely not a professional at it, but I'm riding the wave as best I can.
Well, you've so the business in itself and you as the business have been growing steadily, but regularly. Basically, the entire time I've known you, I would have to say, I was introduced to EOS in probably 2013 when I jumped on Instagram for PVK.
Do you remember that? That was crazy. So you and your buddy came down. Yo, I still have that cactus. You know that.
Oh shit! Do you really? Okay.
That was the first time you came down. You're like, yeah, I want to make these nuts, the Impera.
So that was so okay, yeah. So that was nuts. So 2013, I find you on Instagram. 2015, I'm like, okay, look, like I know this guy. I know you're in New York. We hit you up, and I'm like, yo, let me come down. Like I'm up the street. I'm like, I'm a few hours away. I have an idea for something I want to make, which is kind of like now I realize how you started with the choppers, which I was like, I have this knuck I want to make. It's a 2-piece magnet knuck. And you're like, yeah, whatever.
Very similar story where you like walked into some place where you had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
And you're like, and then it just sprawls out of control into something
completely.
else.
That's the thing. So like I walked in and like I'd never been in a machine shop before. I was just like, okay, like this is this thing I want to make. And you were just like, sure, absolutely. No questions asked. We can make this.
Yeah, we
got you. And I was like, okay, like never had an experience like that, but you were totally open to the project, no questions asked. There was no limitations. It was just very like, whatever, like we can do this. Like nothing can stop us. And I remember at the time you were making the Surgeon, the Warrenclyffe. That was the new-ish model for you.
That was our second knife before our biggest hit knife, which was the Squid, which is still my favorite one. And like it's big and chunky and kind of ugly now that I look at it. But during its time, it was like, and I think that's kind of, I'd love to talk about this too, is I think it's kind of like you look at all of our products versus like everyone else's, we are different, and some people are like, you're different in a weird way. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, I don't care. Like, but our stuff is definitely different than a lot that's out there. And I take inspiration from like, I guess, other venues that most people wouldn't even think of. And for instance, if you look at, there's a pattern. There's one of the patterns that I do on the Harpoon, our OTF. And I always make people bets. I'll bet them $100. I'm like, hey, what does this pattern look like to you? Like, where do we, like, because they always ask me, like, how'd you make that pattern? And I'm like, well, think about it. I'm like, I know you've seen the pattern before. I said, but it's nothing in the EDC world. I said it's something different. And I'll send you a picture of it later, guys. But the pattern on one of the variations of our OTFs, like we have a hex pattern, which is like, that's kind of what's in lately or whatever. But the other thing is like the one pattern we have, which looks like a bunch of arrows pointing forward. It's the Lamborghini Aventador taillights. Like that's what it is. But everyone's like, oh wow, like they like, and then once they put 2 and 2 together, they're like, oh shit, that's cool. But it's not something that we like publicize or throw out there. But it's stuff like I take inspiration from that kind of stuff in order to like kind of be outside the box. And like we are like not trying to be cocky or anything, but like I feel like we are like the pros of the flame tree. Like that's our thing. So, and we do that on a lot of our products. Like our flame treated wallets are our best selling wallets, and 90% of the flame treat gets done by none other than Deborah Kerner, my mother, and she's a professional with the MAP gas torch, which is great. So I think like that's kind of cool. Like it's it's definitely fun. But we take inspiration from other stuff, which is like like I'm all into motorsports. I ride motorcycles, and I've always been into motorcycles. So I kind of like to put that little bit of twist on our stuff, and our stuff's definitely different. It's not for everybody, but I think that it's for the guy that wants something that's different than all his friends that just went out and bought a Benchmade or bought whatever that's like, oh, cool, like I've seen that before. But whenever I pull out my Harpoon somewhere and people are like, yo, like, what is that thing? Like, that's wild.
Yeah, no,
and that's kind of where we like to be.
I think standing apart and creating your own aesthetics is good. I know that on a long trip in our past of going to Blade Show, which we'll go over our Blade Show road trips. You mentioned to me that you were a huge sort of Oakley fan, and you saw your brand as really wanting to develop that similar style, and I always totally respected that aesthetic and that business idea, which is just, I don't know, be cool at everything you do and don't make boring shit. I think that's very legitimate. I totally agree.
Like, there's a reason why my dog's name is Oakley.
There you go.
I'm still a big collector, and I think if you looked at my Blade Show booth from whatever 2017, 2018, that was designed and built off of the retro Oakley 90s scheme. Like, that's what it was.
All right, let's jump into it. So 2017. Cool. Let's do it. So I came down to the shop in 2015. We worked on a project. The Janus. We made the 2-finger knucks. I think 2015, maybe like a year went by. We were in contact. Did a couple runs of that, and then I forget exactly how it happened, but you were like, Blade Show, and I was like, yeah, like for sure. And then.
Well, I think I saw it like on Instagram, and I really like didn't know much about it. I'm like, oh, it's a knife show, blah blah. And then like I talked to you about it, and you're like, yeah, like no, like this is like the knife show.
This is it.
And then I'm like, okay, like what do I have to do here? And you're like, well, depends on how crazy you want to go. Like, do you want to get a table? And I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of dumb. And then you're like, well, you can get a booth. I'm like, oh, cool, like a couple tables. And then I started like looking up stuff, and I'm like, oh, a booth. And then I literally just got out of control. I'm like, oh, okay, so like we're gonna build a booth. Like we're gonna build a $30,000 billet aluminum booth that's like we need a van in order to bring down. It's gonna take a army of people in order to assemble.
Which is still okay. If you never saw this, like this is the most badass booth at Blade Show, or most likely any industry trade show booth I've ever fucking seen.
I mean, I can't wait to put it back up again, but I think I'm going to have to make it bigger and better. It's still going to have the same vibe, but when EOS comes back to Blade Show, it's going to be even more extreme than it was. But people just stopped by just to take a picture of our booth. People were like, and then we would be like we were the center of attention of like the Blade Show assembly. Like everyone's like putting up their curtains and everything here, and we're all on ladders like, pass me the screw gun, bah, bah, bah. Like I need a battery, bah. And we're just like running 3/8 bolts in like it's our job. And in 3 hours we assembled this giant erector set of an EOS booth, but it was like an icon for our company, and like it looked so good. So, but I definitely. They actually, I had to like get approval for some of the stuff. I'm like, well, how high can it be? And they're like, well, it could be 16 feet. And I'm like, okay, so like 16 feet 6. And they're like, no. And I'm like, all right, well, like we're going to do it anyways. Like, get your tape measure out, bro.
So give us, okay, so for the folks at home, like give us a little perspective here. Oh, yeah. So
I feel like that was 6 hours of sweat and pain, and then Subway showed up.
How big, how many pieces? Give us a little bit of like, how big were the aluminum sheets? Like,
all right, so we literally had to order, there were 24-foot bars, 4x4 aluminum square tubing. It took us 4 months just to bandsaw cut, drill, make the jigs, everything in order to assemble this booth. And it cost me like way more than I expected. And I don't even want to think about or remember how much it cost. I had to go to the local body shop and be like, yeah, here's the paint chips. I need you to paint these logos. And they're like, oh, well, it's going to cost you. I'm like, whatever, like, let's just do it. And we had, like I'm talking about like automotive paint, clear coat, like everything was really nice. And then I had, finishing washers on everything, which is completely unnecessary. Like most people probably didn't even notice it, but I did. It made me feel good. But we had built a fortress of a booth that you could have hung a car from above the entire show and it would have been fine. But it was hundreds and hundreds of feet of aluminum tubing and no exaggeration, thousands of bolts and washers and screws. And thankfully my mom and Sean had we had a blueprint schematic of how to put this booth together. Once we got there, we had to pre-assemble it in the shop to make sure we knew what we were doing. It was like a serious undertaking. And then, we're driving this booth down that probably weighs 8,000 pounds in this Ford van on 3 wheels, just trying to make it to Blade Show. Like, it was a lot of fun. And I do miss it, honestly. Like, it was kind of a white knuckle experience at some points with, like, we're driving this van from New York to Atlanta and we got all these knives, all this stuff in there. And we're just like literally driving down in a soda can and just trying to make it. And we did every time. And it was a blast. But the assembly part sucked because they didn't put the AC on until the day of the show. So it's 105 degrees inside there and we're all just dying. But you, Jeremiah, you, Nick, everybody else, like, that helped us, like, my crew, plus you guys, plus, like, random friends that showed up, like, everybody came together, and I was like, hey, guys, like, I'll buy you beer, I'll buy you food, like, please help me put my booth together.
I'll never forget the amount of side-eye that area was getting when we were putting that thing together. I remember my fat ass was like on a
construction site.
Yeah, I remember my fat ass on a 10-foot ladder, and I'm just like, I have these 4 bolts, and all these are plugged. I'm like screaming at Sean. I'm like, Sean, you have the blueprints in your head. Where do these 4 bolts go? He's like, other side.
Yeah, or like whacking him with a hammer. I'm like, get the bolt through. I was like, I can't get the nut on. It's like it was like it was like a movie where like someone was about to die. And it's like, I can't get the pin, and we're just like, just fucking get it. So like, it was nerve-wracking. But then as soon as we were finished assembling it, we all just sat back, cracked a beer, and admired the work we just done. And then looked around the show and was like, yeah, we just built the coolest booth here.
Oh, yeah. No, that booth is, again, I'll dig up some pictures and John we'll put them in the feed. But the EOS booth for Blade Show was second to none. Even this year with the pirate ship, that shit was, like, the EOS booth was massive. It was literally like John said, you could hang a car from the interior, no problem.
It was 2 tons of billet aluminum.
Yeah.
Oh my god! I think that was the worst part, is because once we brought everything in and we were all sweaty and dying, that's when we're like, okay, now we got to put it together.
Yeah, now we can start building it, and then it was a nightmare, but it ended up well. Taking it down was always way faster. I don't know why.
You don't think where it goes, just rip everything you see apart.
Yeah, you're just like, take it off. But yeah, we were definitely the most obnoxious booth builders there.
Oh yeah, that Blade Show booth. To even more full circle this, the bead was made for the first year or the second year?
The second year. I was like, okay. I gotta do something cool. And that bead, no lie, a whole week on the CNC.
Oof. That's like
I'm not even kidding. That's an $8,000 bead.
Oh wow. Okay. All right.
If I made it again, I could probably make it cheaper. But there's only one, and there's not going to be another one. But that's an $8,000 bead, and there was probably 5,000 people that took a picture with it. And I remember everybody just wanted to borrow it from me at Blade Show, especially in the pit. Like, I didn't want to carry it because it's 25 pounds or whatever, and everyone was like, can we borrow it? I'm like, yeah, here, you take it. And it wasn't hard to find whoever had it because you could just watch them struggle trying to carry it around the show.
Yeah, it's giant. It's totally amazingly giant. One-off 3D masterpiece.
And some random person's gonna own it, and I hope they treat it well, and I hope they post pictures of it. I hope they take it to the beach and like prop it up in a chair and take a picture of like themselves with the bead on the beach, because it costs as much as a Rolex.
Yeah, right. That's phenomenal. So okay, so that first year, tell us a little bit about that first year at Blade Show. Like, you rolled up with this totally nuts booth. You had the whole crew, right? Like,
yeah, we had Kyle too.
That's right.
Kyle was an asset to our company while he was with us, for sure. Like, he is excellent. He has a great mind for design and like totally outside the box thinking. And I've never seen anyone 3D model as fast as he can. So it was wild how he kind of helped us bring new product to speed as fast as we did, because I'd be like, Kyle, I need you to design me like 4 different frame lock knives this week. And it'd be like Tuesday. He'd be like, yeah, here's 6 of them. I'd be like, okay, sick. I was like, and then basically like having him with us is like, it was good because he didn't know what he was making would be cool. And half of it was cool, half of it wasn't, but half of it was cool, like really cool. So we all like as a team picked which ones we wanted to make. And he was very fast. And I know, Jeremiah, you've said this to me and I'm very proud of it, but I've had like a conceptual design, like talking to you about it like a week before it, and then a week later, it's in your hands, and you're like, well, how the fuck did you guys just go from nothing to a completed knife in a week? And I'm like, that's what we're good at. Like we are, and I account part of that to choppers because we had one day. Like they're like, you need to make X, Y, Z. Like, yeah, these rims for this bike. Here's the plain blank rim. Like 5 o'clock today. Like you better have the done one, and it better be sick. And it was like balls to the wall. Like everybody, like let's go make this wheel. So it was like it was almost like a race, but like don't fuck it up either because you can't. So, and I think that's what like a lot of other knife makers can't do is that we have a lot of product considering how small we are. And I think like a lot of companies like to take their one thing and master it and keep going with it, which I think is great too. But I think that's not us. Like we are very much fluid and we like to offer, and I'm not saying that we don't offer the same quality as some of the other ones. Now, we don't make custom knives. We are making factory production knives. But I will say that we have a very good skill set of going from design to customer produced product a lot quicker than a lot of other people.
Oh yeah, no, it's probably the fastest in the industry that I've experienced. It's remarkable when I talk to you and it's a drawing, and then yeah, like a couple days later, it's physical. You're like, here's a prototype I just sent you. It's like it's in the mail. I'm like, what? Like, okay, it's no being fluid, especially a company your size with the catalog. Um, you move very quickly, and you're absolutely right. Design production houses double your size have half the amount of product on hand. It's crazy.
Yes, I think you're right, and I think that like while there's definitely a balance, and maybe sometimes we're on the right side of the balance, and sometimes we're on the wrong side of the balance, but I think that you see some people like there is in my opinion, and tell me if I'm wrong, especially you, Nick, like there's a point where you're like, okay, I've done everything I can do to this model. Like, this is it. Like, this is the best I can, or the best I'm willing to make it, or the most I'm willing to put into this model, because if I try and go more extreme or harder or cheaper or better, it might not work out, or it's definitely not going to work out. And then it's not like you cut bait. It's like you just re-envision what else you can do next. And I see a lot of companies that are definitely still on their perfection route, but only have very limited SKUs. And no, Nick, I'm not talking about you. So there's definitely, but there's a lot of companies that. Sorry, my phone was going off. I just sounded stupid. So there's a lot of companies that are very much pushing towards like that Petit Philippe perfection, and I am more about making the perfect one for the masses.
No, I think that's a great way to look about it, and diving into the post Blade Show fluidity thing, I think one of my memories, one of my great memories that I talked to Kyle about this pretty recently. Actually, we were kind of getting drunk and reminiscing about old times. But
building a bally song in the hotel room?
You're fucking A. Like on the way back from Blade Show, it was during
that
like
was
the early days of the bally song thing, and I'm like, look, like this is a product that I know is needed.
I was against it.
Yeah,
I was so against
like,
it. I'm like
know.
Jeremiah, we're sitting in the hotel drinking beers like after the show. We're all tired, and you're like, dude, you gotta make a bally song, and I'm like, no, we're not. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I was like, I don't have time to make a Valley song. I don't have time to do any of this. I was like, this is a joke. And you're like, yo, I'll buy them all. And I'm like,
you're like, all right.
I'm like, okay. And I was like, Kyle, make a Valley song. And he did, right?
That's the thing.
And then,
yeah.
But like a week after Blade Show, I'm like, yo, Jeremiah, here's a serpent. And
that's the thing.
Dude, that knife sold out. So people still call us. Like, we might have to do a Serpent 2.0 because people are like, y'all got any more of them serpents? And I'm like, well, not right now. But I was like, let me work on it. So my goal, and anyone listening to this podcast, please message me if you're interested. But my goal for next year is to make a retail sub 150 Valley song.
Ooh, okay.
So message me if you want us to do it, but like I really want to do it, and I promise you the quality will be just as good as our more expensive knives. Okay. All right. I really want to do it. Like I want it to retail at 150.
Because that's the thing. That knife at the time, there was no American-made Bally song you could get for sub like I don't know $400, $300. So the challenge was there, and then you nailed it. And I remember I was at the shop in Vegas and you sent me the pictures of the inside of the handle and it said actually made in the USA, which was fucking, that was genius. Nailed it 100%.
Yeah, well, I feel like some people are like kind of skating around the fact that they are, which, look, I don't care, do what you will. Like, we won't. Come to my shop and show up anytime. You'll see us making our parts. But I think that we have not opened the entire USA made affordable quality Valley song can of worms yet. And I think you're going to have to wait till next year to see us open that can all the way. And it's going to be something amazing that everyone's going to want because of the price point and because of the quality and the materials and the fact that it's made 100% in one shop, even the screws.
Yeah, which is totally bonkers. I mean, price-wise, even if it was, yeah. Okay, all right. No, that's
150.
Okay, all right.
Mark my words. Mark my words, bro.
Okay. That's some serious shit.
Jeremiah, while we're still on here, so what's new and exciting in the knife world? Like, if I could like have one thing to say to anyone's listening is like, as a business owner, like we want to know like more of what everybody wants. Like, message us, tell us like, hey, make a $200 Valley song, or hey, can you guys make this?
You know, so
we want to know.
You actually bring up a pretty solid point, which I do talk to. I talk to makers and I talk to customers as part of my job. So I see both sides. Dealers see both sides of the spectrum on that one, which is actually pretty rare because makers just deal with like a certain amount of customers, and customers just generally deal with either a maker and or a dealer. But I would say easily, I think that we're getting out of the other side of a bubble on this one. So the knife industry was in a bubble the last couple of years. Things were pretty crazy for everybody. And I think we're coming out on the other side of that. What's never going to change in the knife industry is people want quality and they don't want to pay a whole lot for it. Well, obviously that kind of rings true all over the place. But
of course, well, it's like the old saying. It's like, you want it good, fast, or cheap, pick two.
Right, exactly. But here's the thing. Innovation is always going to be the master of all of those things. New and interesting product, things that challenge the way you think about a standard product, something done differently, something done interestingly, replacing the materials on something that's been pre-existing. Like, these are going to be things that capture people's imagination and therefore capture sales. Like, right, the Bally song is a great example of that. Like, titanium sandwich handle construction XHP steel for $200. Fuck out of here. Like, people were like, that's not possible. Nailed it. Totally doable.
Yeah, it was like buying an ice cream cone, bro. People were like, yeah. Like, the line's a mile long. They're like,
right.
It's 100 degrees out. Everybody wants a fucking ice cream cone.
And that's the thing is a product
so I'm
like
asking
that.
You, like, yeah, I think, like, and that's kind of, like, I think where sometimes for me, and I'm sure for Nick understands this too, but it's hard to make the balance of, like, how crazy do I go in respect to how much does it cost? Because, like, obviously Nick and I could both make something absolutely crazy and sell it for an absolutely crazy price tag. Or we could make something absolutely boring and sell it for a stupid low price tag. But finding the right balance of materials and I'm sure you know, Nick, like, finishing an assembly is half the cost of the knife, whether or not you think it is.
Also, low quantity. Like I always say, I'd rather make 5 knives at a sub $1,000 price point than one $5,000 knife.
Yes, but would you rather make 500 knives at a $200 price point than make 50 knives at a $1,000 price point?
We're different on that. Where I rather go for the 50 at 1,000, just because that's how my process is built. Like I don't.
Yeah, and I know your process
like
is different than mine. No, so of course, and I understand but your stuff is a little bit more custom, and you offer hand ground blades where we don't. So I understand that your product carries or requests a price point and deserves a price point because you do have a lot more custom handwork done than us. Well, we're more of a factory, but I think also for instance, the Valley songs. Is it worth adding, okay, in my opinion, the bushings versus bearings, bushing knives are way harder to build, but I get so many messages can you build this knife with bushings? And I'm like, yeah, we can. We can do whatever. I can make whatever you want, but it's what's going to appeal to the masses. And to make one knife and to offer it in bushings and bearings is, really not cost effective for us.
Right. Yeah, that gets tricky, huh? I mean,
it does, for sure.
I can make a Valley song with a rocket ship on it, but is that gonna be appealing to everybody? Is everybody gonna be able to afford that? Is that of interest? But we could build it, of course.
Yeah, it's okay, if I made a fucking $2,200 OTF that only fired 50 times and then you had to recharge it, is that cool? Or is that ridiculously stupid? Oh yeah, by the way, you gotta buy these CO2 cartridges, so you gotta fill the pressure tank. I've thought about this. I think
that would be pretty cool.
I know, trust me, I've thought about it, and I might make it one day.
That'd be pretty fucking cool.
By the way, it's out of gas. I gotta refill my knife.
That's actually
just a gravity knife once it's out of gas.
Fucking it still works.
But I'm talking about and if anyone, no one's ever thought of this besides me. So I'm just telling you, someone else does it before me.
You heard it here first. Don't steal that IP.
You heard it here first. I'm gonna make a CO2 powered OTF.
So what gets, all right, how about this 2-part question, because I kind of know the answer to this. I know how you rock and roll, but what gets you out of bed in the morning at EOS? What's the thing that continues to fucking rock your world at work every day?
Okay, so there's a couple of things that keep me going. One, it's I truly enjoy the actual aspect of putting tool to metal and cutting metal. But if I was doing something boring, if I was making valve housings for the natural gas industry and I was going to work every day, and even if it was my shop, if I was making the same amount of money as I was now making gas valves, every day I go, I think as a business owner, having the ability to have complete control over, if I want to do something new tomorrow, let's just say tomorrow morning I wake up and I'm like, oh, you know what? I want to make the most crazy tomahawk you ever seen. No one's going to stop me. And I think that's really gratifying to have the freedom to know that while I am bound by my company, I could walk away tomorrow and be yeah, cool. I think I'm just going to go work for Northrop Grumman and I want to be on the missile team and I want to make whatever mechanism that decides that the missile blows up at the right time. I could probably get a job. But that'd probably get really boring because I wouldn't be able to have I think having the freedom that I have currently, and while I am I'm definitely a very creative mind, I think that that helps me out. And don't get me wrong, I could have way less stress doing something way easier, making the same amount of money, but I chose this path because I tell everyone, I was if you don't like your job, if you don't get up every day to go to work and you're not pumped up about going to work, I was then go find something else, because it exists. And a lot of people are oh, I gotta go to work, or oh, I'm off. I'm I'm going into work on Sunday because I got this project that I need to not that I need to, but that I'm determined to get to the next step on, and I know that if I don't do it, no one's gonna fucking do it for me, so I just gotta do it.
So it is a combination of just a constant amount of challenges.
Yeah, but that keeps me on my toes, and I get bored. I ride a motorcycle on the street at 200 miles an hour. I get bored. You know what I mean? So it's and thinking about if I had like a mundane like day job where I just went in and like there was like nothing exciting happening, like there's always like exciting stuff happening at AOS, and when I say exciting, I mean stressful. But that like keeps my mind fresh and keeps everything going and forces me to innovate and make changes and adapt to become better, especially like as the market changes or as people's wants and needs change or as the technology of the machine tools that we have or the materials that we have. Like, so kind of off topic, but not really. So I want to know both your guys' opinion on, um, okay, every year it seems like a new steel comes out and everyone's like Magna Cut, this, that, or, so I jumped on the bandwagon. My double-edged dagger OTF harpoons are now CPM Magna Cut, which I think is not a bad choice. But I'm also like, if you guys both pick up a knife, right, that was built well, same exact knife, same maker, and
Magna Cut is the end-all be-all of current hotness in steel, period.
until next year, and then someone's going to have Magna Cut 2.0.
Look,
so I'm saying it's always going to get better. So what I'm saying is like EOS has transitioned to using Magna Cut because according to the data, it is a phenomenal steel. Like, now, do you agree that is the best steel right now that money can buy?
No.
That's as far as I like to
exactly.
get that topic.
Yeah, that
Nick,
Nick can't continue having that car. So okay, so here's the thing. Yeah, Magna Cut is a totally phenomenal steel. I'll make a layman's argument here that a proper heat treat changes everything. I've carried, so my go-to carry is a Microtech Scarab full serrated DLC. It's an M390. It's properly heat treated. That knife kicks so much ass. It's ridiculous.
So now, but
like
M398 and 20 CP or CV is the same thing.
They're metallurgically speaking, they're very similar. A proper heat treat goes a long way. Like that's the thing.
No, but I'm not even talking about heat treat. I'm talking about like if you gave a scientist a piece of M390 and a piece of 20 CV,
like carpenter steel. Sure. Would they know the difference?
Before heat treat.
Well,
or they both went to the same heat treater. Like, is there a discernible difference?
If they went to the same heat treater, I don't think that most people could tell the difference. That's the thing.
The recipe is about 95% the same. The process of how it's made is the different part. And that's where the argument goes, is CPM technology better than what Carpenter's technology is, and yada, yada, yada. I still think the best Golden Boy steel of all time is S30V. It's just old, so it gets a bad flack.
Well,
but S30V is like the best all-around thing ever.
So Nick, look at every one of my Bally songs. Guess what steel I use?
S90.
No, S30.
Those are some of them were S90. That's why.
No, I never made S90 Bally songs. My Dorado S was S90V because I wanted to be able to cut rope with it for days. That's why I made it.
I'm switching to S45 on my next batch. I'm curious to try
and I think
out.
Like so, and you. Look, when you put that blade against a sharpening stone or a sharpening belt, you can just feel how good it's going to be even before it's sharp. Like someone that's done thousands of knives, like people bring me their kitchen knives and I'm like, oh God, like this is like the worst steel in the world. But I think that you're talking about something that's so negligible that, but then again, it's like the brand name steels are required. Like, why do you think Louis Vuitton is worth 1,000 times more than Kate Spade?
It's
like,
just leather.
It's vinyl actually.
Okay, exactly, right.
But what I'm saying is like, but you have to appeal to the masses. So therefore we are using Magna Cut, but not solely. Like I'll use whatever steel I want. Like I think there's a scale.
A lot of that comes from the industry. As an industry, we demand new and fresh things, like you were saying, new machines, new technology. So we demand new steels to put in these relatively rudimentary tools that we use and we make. We need new steels for that. Magna Cut is the epitome of that, being the most current thing developed by a person in industry who is thought of as very knowledgeable, and Laren is very knowledgeable, and it's a product of its environment. People were like, look, this is what we want, a steel, and it was produced. That might have been the same thing for S30 when it was created, but we needed a new steel. We needed a new steel from, someone thought of as one of us to put into these tools. I honestly haven't really used MagnaCut enough to have a personal opinion on it. Like I said, my Scarabs M390, I have no problems with it. I think it's great.
Yeah, of course, and I think there's so many great steels out there. So here's my take on it, and take it or leave it. So, all right, you put an average driver in the brand new 2023 911 GT3, okay, and you there? Sorry, I just went like really quiet. Someone dropped off the mic. So you put an average driver in a brand new 911 GT3, 2023, and then you put like an average driver, another average driver, maybe someone that's equally as good or maybe a tiny bit better, but still a novice driver in a 2005 911 GT3, and you put them at a racetrack. Both of them never driven that racetrack. Are you gonna bet on one to be a winner? So that's what I'm like. You're talking about something that's maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, but at the end of the day, like in its true element being used as it would be, which is not putting it to the absolute, like if you put the same most amazing GT3 driver in a 2023 GT3, and then you put the same driver in an older GT3, the new GT3 is going to shine. But if you put the average Joe behind the wheel of both, neither of those cars will be able to be shown to their full potential because the driver is not good enough to utilize the car, which is a weapon to them. So they're not good enough to utilize that weapon to its capabilities, which in my opinion, somewhat, and I'm not saying fully because I know there's like a lot of steels that are better than others, but somewhat kind of dulls the ratio between like this steel is 1% better than this one and this car is 1% better than this one, but in the hands of a normal person, it's indiscernible.
No, exactly. Here's two easy solutions for that. A, most of these steels are not properly defined. Most of these edges are very debatable, and the public at large makes these huge decisions on production knife companies and production edges. While they're not all terrible, they're not all made and sharpened equally. So that's really debatable.
There's so many factors. There's so many factors that can control that too.
And like a great example of that is today, one of my guys got. So he was looking to get this knife. I'm not going to say what knife it is, but he was really excited about this knife. But it only came in a satin finish D2, and he was like, "Oh man, like I don't know D2, like God, like that steel's so old, blah 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 blah."
Yeah, well, it kind of is an old steel, and like people are like, they look at D2 and they're like, "Oh well, if it's not coated, it's gonna rust." Like satin finish D2, like that's not a knife that I would personally buy. But to some people, they're like, "Oh well, I know how to take care of my knife well." They're gonna take that. Okay, it's not even a blade steel; it's a tool steel. So they're gonna say, okay, like I'll take the D2, but like, what is their buying? You know, what is the factor of why they are buying that knife with that steel? Is it because they love that knife and it's only made in that steel, or is it because they're a diehard D2 fan, or is it because of the price? So there's many factors that determine why someone buys a knife, and I think blade steel is like a huge choice of why someone buys a knife. But to me, all the knives lately in the past 5 years are anything that's worth buying. Like I'm talking about like high end stuff like that me and Nick make is worth. They're going to use a good steel no matter what. They're not going to put a garbage steel like. And I don't use D2 on anything like, and it's just how it is.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that D2 is relegated to a more production arena, and what you guys do, right? Using D2 would be pretty reasonably unacceptable, you know, at least for the outcome that you're going for and the users that you're targeting.
Again, it depends on the knife. Like D2's phenomenal steel. It's the same argument I have about S30. It's old, and it's being adapted on knives that are $50. It really comes down to heat treat.
Okay, but neither you or me, Nick, sell knives that are $50.
Yeah, but again, that's just the space of it, and there's the whole joke with China and the D2. I'm pretty confident the D2 is coming out of China. Aside from that joke, is it the same as coming from here? Some people
I don't know, but maybe we could schedule some sort of test. Like we can chip in and have a fundraiser to throw some steel in a lab and have it really be checked out by scientists. Like that might be a fun thing we could do on another podcast.
Not a podcast, but some people know I spent 2.5 years working with the NJ Steel Baron guys back in my early days. So I've been around metallurgy, the knife steels, the development.
Okay, so tell me how much you love Nitro V.
I like it, but I'm also partial to it because I named it. So there's that. But I'm getting away from it. Not because of the market, not because of whatever. It's the same thing. Put it this way.
It's not bad steel.
Were you around when ZT had a bunch of bad LMAX?
I personally don't remember. Like, I don't follow it that much. I'm kind of focused on
so essentially LMAX is an amazing
companies
steel.
that are more in my niche than ZT.
So LMAX is amazing steel. ZT single-handedly destroyed LMAX in the market, like entirely.
Well, Microtech was doing that. Microtech was using LMAX for a long time, weren't they too?
They were after the fact, but on the custom side, as far as sales of what it was, it stopped being imported, like the whole thing. And the question was, did ZT fuck up the heat treat, or was it a bad batch of steel? So I worked at NJ Steel Baron long enough. Sometimes you can get the same steel forever, and you get a bad batch. I've almost used ABL and Nitro V exclusively for the last 6 years. I'm steering away from it because all of it that I got in the last smelt roll, whatever they like to call it, over the last 2 years, I've been experiencing warp issues with it. I've been using
CPM metal or no?
No, Nitro V and ABL is the same thing, and Nitro V hasn't added vanadium and nitrogen to it. Nitrogen changes all the properties of said steel, yada, yada, yada. But in the last 2 years, I've been experiencing lots of warp issues with it, and so I am going away from it. Now, I'm pretty convinced that all goes down to the people who smelt it and rolled it and made it. Things change. At the end of the day,
it's a serious process, and like I said, I don't know who's smelting and rolling your metal.
It's I think Bladeology or
Bowler.
No, I think it's Bladeology makes ABL Nitro V.
Yeah, so like all the steel that I buy either comes from Carpenter or direct from Niagara. Like, that's all we buy. And it might cost us more. Like, I don't care. Like, it is what it is. But I know, like, if I buy steel from Niagara, I know what I'm getting.
Well, it's different with them, too. I've used Niagara forever. I used to work with Jeff back
But it also depends on the heat treater. And, like, everyone uses a different heat treater. And, like, that could be a subject for another day. But I think that some well-known heat treaters are great at doing tool steels and horrible at the new age shit.
Yeah, but they also tell you that straight up. I heat treated everything in house for the last 5 years.
Do you okay? Serious question. Do you truly believe that's a benefit to your company?
No, but it's a benefit to my process.
So, all right. So I guess does it make you money or does it lose you money? At the end of the day, we're all here to make money.
So it's a bottleneck, right? So you have to plan an extra 3 weeks if it's show season more to send them out to heat treat and wait till they get back. The moment they're off my machine, we go into heat treat phase. Me and my dad heat treat 60 to 100 knives at a time sometimes.
Okay, but my question is like, how good is your heat treat compared to these guys that are doing aerospace parts in a vacuum furnace?
It's debatable. At the end of the day, I always say.
And like I said, I don't have enough knowledge. I don't have enough knowledge of it. No, but like, and like, I totally understand that your knives are a completely different market than mine, and I understand your process. But what I'm saying is like, I've thought about like, and I will bring in heat treat, but only for components, not for blades.
Like, you have to know your steel. Like, I've used ABL exclusively for 6 years, and I've used ABL for a total of 9 years at this point. I've heat treated comfortably, I could say, at least 4,000 to 5,000 pieces in ABL. I don't Rockwell test it anymore. I've heat treated so many that at this point I just know my recipe works. I get the same results every time within half of Rockwell. Now, MagnaCut's something I'm doing new here. I don't have a Rockwell tester, so it's new. I don't know if the recipe is what I followed. But because it's new, I'm not going to just release it. I'll be
but like how can
this
so
weekend.
you're gonna send can you assure to your customers that they are what they are?
Well, yeah, it's a new steel, so it's a new recipe.
Yeah.
So I'll be in New York this weekend. I'll be stopping by NJ Steel Baron, and we're Rockwell test everyone's blanks.
There you go. Which is
even
awesome.
then, after the further blanks, I will be Rockwell testing it for a bit, whether just shipping it to them to test them for me.
Yeah, and even buying a Rockwell tester is not a massive investment either.
They're pretty expensive, new, used. They're just kind of a pain in the ass. I've had them in the past, and you have like an employee or someone at the shop just lean on it or bump it. oh, there goes a $400 service call because it has to be calibrated. There's a little counterbalance on the back. If you even poke that thing, the whole thing has to be recalibrated.
That's
Yeah, well, there's plenty, there's plenty of precision instruments we use in the machine shop. I had friends walk in and unroll the thimble off the back of my micrometer. I'm like, oh, cool, now I gotta send it in.
Yeah, that's not great.
Like so that's why I'm like,
how about you just don't touch my stuff? Like,
I mean, I think that's totally fair. Someone comes into the shop, it's like, all right, look, don't touch anything.
Nick, non-knife question. Everything else aside, how much does it annoy you? Like, okay, and I know you have some people that come into your shop that you don't know well, that are like touching your shit, and I'm like, just don't. Like,
Don't touch.
And they do it, and I'm just like you don't like it, but they don't even understand.
Well, most things aren't that sensitive.
They don't. Like, I guys use my calipers and then drop it.
You could come into my shop,
like,
Nick. You could come into my shop anytime and touch whatever you're comfortable with touching or using, or like, oh, I gotta use your height gauge, Sean, or let me use your comparator, but you know better than to press cycle start on my Citizen.
My big pet peeve is my drill press tables are leveled and shimmed to absolute ridiculousness. And people just come in and use it as like an elbow rest to lean on.
Cranking in, I'm like, stop! What are you doing?
Yeah, no, they'll just lean on the table like it's a work rest. I'm like, that is not. And I'm dying inside. Please stop.
Yeah, I totally get it.
All right, John. If you whatever, John, if you could machine anything for anybody, if it was any part, what would it be?
Oh, here we go. Perfect. All right, if I could machine anything for anybody,
anything,
I would. Oh, here we go. I would love, if I could have like my perfect machining job, I would be in the power unit factory of Formula One.
Okay. All right.
I want to make the kinetic turbocharger units for these cars. And they're all crazy billet parts, very small runs, but they are like the pieces that have the most precision. Like, and if you want to study it, it's like IMGH, IMGU, or KMGU, whatever. And they are basically, it's a turbocharger with an electric motor on it that these cars are just out of this world. Any kind of machining job in the Formula One industry, like if I could do it, like you asked me, like, oh, you want to make parts for the spaceship? No, I want to make parts for the spaceship that goes around the track. Like, those cars are nuts, and the machining on it and everything on those cars just blows my mind. So if I could machine something for something that like gave me like the more pride than my knives or equal pride than my knives, it would be like, I would love to be on the machining team of a Formula One team.
Okay, that's very legitimate. I could see that. I mean, those cars are basically cutting edge when it comes to internal combustion engines, right?
They're paving the ground for the next generation of road cars in terms of performance and efficiency.
Okay, all right, that's pretty gnarly. Me. Okay, I dig that. What?
But for now, I'll just make spring-loaded pocket knives because I love it and it's fun. And every time I pull out my OTF, anywhere I am, it's like people just crowd around. Like, either they have seen an OTF, but like 90% of the people like have never even seen one or held one, and they're like, what the heck? They're like, wait, it goes back in? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, holy shit. It's always like, it's a huge conversation starter, like wherever I am. And like, I can't tell you how many people are like, yo, John, let me see your knife, because they just want to show somebody my knife. And I'm like, yeah, like, check it out. And like, it's always great. But like, if I could make parts for Formula One cars, that would be the pinnacle of my machining existence.
Okay, so let's jump into that a little bit here. Since you were, in fact, the originator of the construction style used on the EOS Harpoon out the front knife.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the development, about how you were the original designer and engineer behind that, being the first one and the originator.
Well, I can't fully take 1,000% credit, because I will say that me and Nick from Menevade had chatted a bunch about a lot of things, and we both kind of like were talking about different things, and we definitely executed it very well. And do I think it's 1,000% perfect? No. Do I think that it is one of the most innovative attachment designs on a pocket knife lately, yes. Um, Hi, Greg Medford. Anyways, so what I'm saying is that it was this knife almost put me out of business because I spent a year like probably like $150,000 before I even got a good one, and I'm like, I can do it, I can do it. And then finally, I had a couple that worked, and then I'm like, oh, cool, like the handles just exploded like out in public. I'm like, let me just gather up the pieces, and now now we figured it out though, and it's quite a tight tolerance. The coating, like I've had a lot of talks with my coaters because the coating, in order for this design on this knife to work properly, the coating thickness is critical. And the fact that you can disassemble, unjam, clean, whether it's got debris in it, whether it's got ketchup from your sandwich in it, you can disassemble the EOS harpoon and put it back together faster than any other OTF on the market.
Bam. Okay. It's held together with one fastener, right?
One Torx 10 screw holds this entire knife together, and it is pretty much bulletproof to the point where, yes, I will trust this knife with my life. Yes, I will trust this knife with my mom's life. It's good.
Hmm. I mean, I think
And
it's fucking.
there's more work and more cost. Like I could just add more screws and it would be way easier. But like that's kind of like the easy way out, and like that's not what I do.
Yeah, make it more complicated because it's cool, and we don't make boring shit. We make cool shit, right?
Well, that's why they make watches with tourbillons.
You're not wrong. So the development of that knife almost put you out of business. You made all titanium ones originally, right?
So yes, there's been some issues with the titanium ones. Now, I personally carry a titanium one with me every day. They will be available eventually in small numbers. They will have 2 times strength springs in them, basically to overcome the resistance of the friction between this blade steel and titanium. It needs more force. Now, I've been kicking around some other ideas of decreasing the amount of friction on the knife, and they might come to fruition eventually, but it might, I don't want to make it easier if it's not going to be as reliable, so therefore it has to be tested, and we have a lot of work to do. But right now it's working really well, and we have, I wish we could make more faster, but I won't sacrifice the quality of our knives to just puke out more product. So we have a waiting list for these. We do have someone in stock on our site. We save 10% of what we have for our own site so that our loyal followers can have a chance to get them. But as of right now, there's no titanium ones available for sale. You can get titanium cover plates, and eventually, within the next 6-8 months, we're gonna have some full titanium ones available for select few dealers and loyal customers.
Nice. Okay, that's pretty exciting. That knife did a lot of firsts and did a lot of firsts the right way, and the development. I saw the development of it. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's great construction. It's really neat design overall. It's super sleek. The whole aesthetics, it's just nailed it.
It's thin, and it's got a good blade ratio to the handle. It was hard to package everything in there, and it was a lot of learning, and I had a lot of help from a lot of friends in the business that helped me out with some troubles that I had, and I think like that even Matt Diskin, like, and you, Jeremiah, Matt Diskin, some stuff from Nick, some stuff from a lot of people, but like talking to people about issues that I was having and trying to figure out what's the best material to use for this component, and why does this not do this the way I want it to do. Like I didn't like think of everything by myself, so I can't just like take all the credit for me doing it all. Like, yeah, I put tool to metal to make it happen, but it was a lot of influence and a lot of studying and a lot of failing on my part in order to get it right. Because if the springs are too strong, it doesn't work, and if the springs are too weak, it doesn't work. And there's less than plus or minus 1 thou tolerance between like a blade that has the right amount of play and a blade that's unacceptable play.
Right. No, I mean that's a phenomenal piece of engineering,
especially at a knife that sells for less than $500 that's made in a small factory with 3 employees. It's like,
exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
so you're really getting a piece of art.
Yeah, I mean, and that that goes to something I say a lot on here, which is the fact that these things exist at all is pretty much a miracle because people don't really understand what it takes to make these things.
A lot of people they don't respect it, but you think about it, most people get in their car every day and they start it up and they're like, oh yeah, it's just gonna go. I'm like, do you understand what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
For this even to work? They're like, oh, my car's broken. I'm like, you do realize that 4,000 things have to happen exactly perfectly in sequence with zero components failing for a entire long longevity of starting up in hot weather and in sub-zero weather with horrible gasoline. There are so many factors trying to make these devices fail, and just the fact that they work is amazing, but most people just can't even see it.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's kind of what I personally see about my OTF, where people are like, oh yeah, that's cool. I'm like, you have no idea, bro.
You have no concept the amount of mental, physical, and financial degradation that cost me to bring that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't take it back.
Sure.
But
okay.
I will say I've got a bunch of gray hairs in my beard now.
There you go. Well, everyone is well earned.
I fucking earned them, so you know what? It's fine.
That's all right. I like that. So we got titanium OTFs on the horizon.
Yep, and $150 Bally Song next year.
Jeez, this is a lot. That's how you keep yourself busy right there. That's okay.
I like that, but yeah, I hate being bored, bro. You know that.
No, that's true. Okay, I love it. I absolutely think that's a great way to be, and that's a great way to look at it. All right, so what we're tailing off on 90 minutes. What, John, if there was one thing, it would be F1. Where do you see EOS in 5 years, right? Classic business question. Where do you see the company?
So I see, all right, this is my true goal. So I would love to source, find, educate, train the people that I need in order to run the knife side of EOS with my help, but not as much. I want to keep my knife business, my EDC business flourishing in a way that allows me to then start to develop products that are for other markets as well. I have great passion for the knife community, for the EDC stuff. I think we make some awesome products. If you don't have an EOS wallet and you want to try one out, just message us on Instagram and I'll send you a free one to try out because I really think that it's a great product. But now, if I could have a separate sector of EOS, actually, realistically in 5 years, I'd like to have 2 more sectors. I'd like to have the EOS, the merchandise side, where we are making custom, amazing, USA-made range bags, backpacks, but I'm talking about milled titanium buckles, next level shit, nothing that's out there. Very boutique stuff. I would love for that to be a branch, and then I would love to jump off into having some contracts with some, dude, I don't care if it's NASCAR, even though that's kind of the redneck version of racing. Still awesome. But I would love to be more involved with motorsports if I could. I'm not saying that's a definite, but that would be something that I'd like to, dip my feet in a little bit. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen. So, but right now I need to keep full focus on the EOS brand as it is. And I want everybody to try our wallets because not everybody needs to carry a knife. I think they should. But you got to carry a wallet, and the EOS wallet's the one to get.
That's it. I'm loving it, dude. All right.
Absolutely.
I'm as always a huge cheerleader for your brand, man. I'm loving to see what you guys are doing.
I appreciate you being here for us throughout the years and kind of pushing us outside the box, because if it wasn't for you, Jeremiah, that we wouldn't have a Bally Song on our lineup. It would be no, we're not doing that. But you were like, dude, just please, do it for me. And we did it. And you know what? You proved us wrong. So now we make Bally Songs and we got some cool stuff. So absolutely. And I appreciate all of you guys, Nick, you too, for all the talks that we've had and all the knowledge that we've shared back and forth and helping each other with stupid problems and trying to figure shit out.
Little things that always cause the biggest problems.
Yeah, for sure. But like a lot of times you've had a problem that I've had, or like, I remember you teaching me how to straighten out the Bally song handles, where I'm like, they're all bent after double disc grinding, and you're like, yeah, do this, and I'm like, oh, like, thanks Nick for saving my ass. And
I'm very like, oh, they're bent. I'm like, how bad? You're like, here's a box. I'm like, oh Jesus.
Yeah. So no, I appreciate that. So don't worry, I didn't forget. So I think, and I think that like if everybody comes together as a community and kind of, especially the non-makers, the customers, like tell us what you want and we'll make it. Like be open, message us, like let us know what you want to buy. Like what should we make? We'll do it.
I think that's pretty legit. Yeah, like John's saying, reach out and be vocal about some cool shit that's not available that you think should be, and hit him up.
Especially we're fast at prototyping, and even if you think it's a stupid idea, like half the stuff I thought I was gonna make was a stupid idea. Like who would have thought I would have sold 10,000 warhead beads?
That's a lot.
I know.
That's a lot.
But we did.
See that? Nailed it. Fucking nailed it, man.
So it's like, so it's all good. But at the end of the day, we want to know what you guys want, and go on PBK and buy yourself a pill bead, and you can get a red one and a blue one, just like the Matrix, and hook it on your favorite knife or your car keys, and it's kind of a cool little piece.
No, that's a kick-ass little piece of EDC kit right there. That's it. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, and they're $35 or $30, so like get after it.
How can you go wrong? That's it. Hit it up, man. Yeah, that's pretty gnarly, John. I gotta say, if there's anything we haven't gone over, we're gonna have to do episode 2 on here. But I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to jump on and talk with us, talk about the history of EOS and the future. It's been a real blast catching up, man.
No, you guys too. Yeah, Nick.
What's the story of the Nax? I never understood that one.
What's the story of the Nax? Oh, you want to know that? You really want to know?
Yeah.
It was a fun, wild project to make a quick buck, dude, and it worked.
See? All right. It's a knuckle
guess what?
axe.
And I made it into a movie.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie yet, but apparently it's gonna be or is in a movie. It's like a overseas movie, like some vampire movie, and this is his primary weapon. So when I find it, I'll send it to you. But so it was just like something to make for fun, and it was like we needed a little change of pace. Like I was sick of grinding frame locks. I was like, let's make something weird and wild, and like people bought it. And it's also like, I don't know if you ever used one or like held one, but like it's a pretty good weapon.
Oh yeah, you could fuck some shit up with that.
Yeah, you totally could. So I think it serves a purpose, and like for $150, like just get one if you can. I don't know if there's any left.
We are sold out.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like we only made 200 of them, but it was a fun project for us to do. It brought us as a team together. We were excited, and like that's the story of the Nax. Like we literally it was a fun project. And it was something that Kyle kind of like, I was like, yo, Kyle, design something crazy. And like, that's what he designed. He designed like the knuckle thing first with the blades on it. And then I'm like, yo, put a handle on it. And then we're like, we're making this. And we posted up on our Instagram and everyone's like, we want it. And sure enough, they sold out. I was like, cool. Like, but yeah, Nick, that's it. It was just for fun.
I get it. I design shit like that all the time. Like Jared sees me design. I'm like, I'm gonna make this.
Make something. I'll buy one.
I designed a trident. Like a 5-foot trident that I want to try to make by next Blade show to have in my booth.
Sick.
But it's like a 10-inch by 8-inch by 5/8 titanium head. It's a full carbon fiber shaft with a giant titanium pommel.
Sure.
Sounds like you might need to go to the bedroom after this one.
It's
a large carbon fiber titanium shaft.
Okay.
Sorry, Nick. I'm just fucking.
Aerospace trident.
Aerospace trident.
The goal is next Blade show. I have like 60 projects I've designed over the last 8 years. I've made one of them.
All right, we'll make one more because like even if you only make a couple, someone will buy them. I'll buy one, whatever, and it's just it's good for your mindset.
I get into it with the design part. I'll finish it. I'll even drop most of the cam for it, and I'm like,
yeah.
Okay.
So just make one. Just make a couple just for fun, and you'll sell them, and it's just fun.
Yeah, I gotta make that, and I gotta make my my Gladius dagger, like pretty much using the entire travels in my mini mill to make.
All right. Well, if you need help, just call me. I got big travels over here.
See, done.
That's the way to do it. Make this so I could feel like I got it done.
Yeah, sure. I got 40 by 26, bro. Let's go.
Damn. All right.
So, all right, boys. Well, it was a pleasure. I really appreciate you guys allowing me on your podcast. And I hope I get to be invited again. It was a great time. It was a great chat. Absolutely enjoyable. And I hope that anybody listening that had questions about who EOS really is, some of them got answered. And if you've got more questions, you know where to find us.
That's it. Hit him up on Instagram. We'll have to have you back on.
All right, Jeremiah. It sounds like a plan. You guys, I hope you both have a wonderful night. And again, I thank you guys for having me on.
Right on. All right. Talk to you soon, John.
You got it. Bye, guys.
All right. To find out more about myself, Jeremiah Burbank, you can email me about the podcast at bladeologypodcast@gmail.com or my work email, info@pvk.com, or you can check out the website, www.pvk.com. To find out more about my co-host, Nick Chuprin, you can find him on Instagram at NCCKnives or on his website, www.nccKnives.com. You can also shoot him an email, contact@nccKnives.com. To get in contact with John or his company, Elite Outfitting Solutions, also known as EOS, hit them up on Instagram at EOS Knives or on their website, www.eosedc.com.